Welcome back to SwitchCorner. My name is Alex and today we're taking a look at Stubbs the Zombie and Rebel Without a Pulse, a remaster of the quartet that released originally way back in 2005. My questions today though, is it still going to be worth your time in 2021? You know, gaming's come a long way in the last 15 years, and then can its more than unusual sense of humour and originality carry it enough to earn it a spot in your library? Well, hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here, join our growing family, and let's get started. So the story's for sure out there, as you probably expect from the name. In 1933, Edward Stubblefield finds love with a girl by the name of Maggie Monday. This happiness, though, not so long lived. Maggie's father returns home, finds him there, kills him and dumps the body. For sure, a very bad day. Then we fast forward 26 years and a new city has been built named Punchbowl, and Punchbowl just happens to be on top of your grave. Now on the, let's say the launch date of this city, you raise from the dead, and now it's time for revenge by eating brains and essentially creating a zombie army all of your own. Story-wise, it's okay. It doesn't all work together. At times it can feel a little disjointed almost in its delivery and basically a little all over the place, but at least it leads to a wide variety of locations and a creative cast. In the end though, look, it's all one big excuse for immature jokes and brain eating, and does that really surprise anyone? So I'm going to put this out there now, this one, it has not stood the test of time. The idea back in 2005, it was unique, a contrast to the typical zombie experience. You know, normally you were facing off against them, here you become one of them. It was all very B-movie, from the location design and production to the sense of humour it contains. You know, if farts as a taxi your thing, think almost Oddworld, there's no doubt you'll appreciate what's on offer here, and the humour in the attacks definitely work. You know, flatulence stuns enemies around you, you can rip off your own arm and control any of your enemies in this world, you can throw guts, which are grenades essentially, and then you can even detach your head and basically throw it at them like a bowling ball, which just also happens to explode. The idea is as creative as it was back when it was released, however, the problem here are the controls, not so much. So the best way I can describe the controls contained here, that would be clunky. The movement for the most part is fine, but the jump is slow and difficult to control. The gut grenade probably works the best out of all the specials. The attack in general, when you swing your arms, extremely slow. There's no way to kind of avoid an enemy attack. And then the specials, the arm, the bowling ball, head, it switches to this additional camera. And by today's standards, it almost feels like we're back to tank controls. Throw this together then with what is uninspired level designs, which can be summed up as corridors and then a few open areas, and I did find myself questioning what I like so much about this back at release. But as I said at the beginning, a lot changes in 15 years, that is for sure, and this game is kind of a prime example of that. The gameplay though really can be summed up as stumble around, find your way to that next objective with very little guidance, which will lead to some minor frustration, I can guarantee that, and then kill everybody by eating their brains. The pacing's just really unusual here. For a game that's story only lasts the 3 to 4 hour mark, it just doesn't have enough to hook you, even with that short runtime and kind of self-contained levels. If anything, some of them feel almost a little overlong. Also, some levels just kind of randomly cut off to a cutscene, though I didn't realise I was anywhere near the exit, and I even did have a couple of hard crashes. The best bit of this one by far, the zombie army you build. They can be a little annoying at times, which we'll get to, but there's two reasons here for eating brains. One, to power up your specials, they need to recharge, but more importantly, it converts the population into that zombie army, who you can then basically call them to follow you with a tap of the D-pad, and they will attack your enemies too. They're clumsy, the AI here is awful as they get stuck on the anything, but there's still something incredibly satisfying about watching them take over the locals or the law enforcement. They will definitely get in your way too, but fortunately the game gives you a command to push them out of the way, just a tap of the X button. The only other things worth mentioning, health does recharge, so you will be standing still a lot, kind of just regenerating that health, and then there's a few levels to break things up. There's actually a dance-off in the middle of it, and yes, you heard that right, a dance-off, a vehicle moment as well, and then there's also some minor stealth moments if you prefer to play that way, but I've got to be honest, I found very few uses for it. This one though, I hate to say it, but maybe it would have been best left in the past. As someone who briefly played it at release, when I say briefly, I think I played through it once, My opinion of it was a lot higher before I ventured into this remaster. Now I'm not really quite so sure what I liked so much, honestly. You know, I think if anything this needed more attention than simply an upscaled and cleaned up remaster. It needed tweaks and adjustments and even some redesigns as well. So graphically speaking, it's not great, honestly. You know, this is just a straight up remaster, that's it. They've made it HD and then no real other changes at all. Basically here you can expect mostly empty locations, repetitive designs, and then very jagged edges in the world. And well, yeah, everything else around you is very almost low quality textures. The enemies especially, though, they repeat near constantly, and often you'll be faced with, let's say, a group of opponents and they are all identical. The issue I have here, visually Stubbs has a ton of potential, but sadly it's very much a game of its time. 3D from this generation just hasn't aged particularly well. I still like the locations, I still like the characters, it just all feels incredibly underdeveloped. So audio finally, and again I hate to say it, but it's just undercooked. The sound effects are minimal, the world itself at times almost silent. They built the world but they didn't really fill it with ambience at all, which is something I do personally like to see. Even then, the sounds that we do get, they repeat constantly from characters and enemies who try to deliver like these one-liners when they're attacked, but they will wear thin when you've heard them like that same thing over and over again from completely different characters. Fortunately, the music is solid though, a creative collection of tracks and cover songs from artists including the likes of Death Cab for Cutie, The Flaming Lips and The Walkmen. It's still a great soundtrack to this day and well worth a listen. It's a really interesting piece to look at given its modern artists, but they're taking on tracks from the 30s, 50s and 60s. So overall, a hands up, I was looking forward to revisiting Stubbs the Zombie and Rebel without a pause. I quickly though recognised loading it up, some things they're best left in the past. It's not that it's a bad game, it's just a very lacklustre experience in comparison to what we are now used to, and I definitely would not recommend it to newcomers. It's a HD coat of paint and that really is about it, and I don't think the mechanics, the repetitive gameplay, or empty worlds will now impress. That said, as a throwback for those that like me maybe grew up on it, it may still be worth a look out of curiosity more than anything else, because you'll be done with it in, 3.5 hours. That's the story completely wrapped. But the next question, can you justify the price for such a short experience, and is the nostalgia buy worth it? In hindsight, given the choice now, honestly, I'm not sure I would be revisiting Stubbs. An average 5 out of 10 for me, and that score, it really is for those of you that have nostalgia for it like myself. Everyone else, I'd say actually knock a couple of points off that score. Don't do it to yourself, because like I said, I won't call it a bad game, but it's for sure an uninspired HD upgrade and little else, and Stubbs for me deserved a lot better than that, and it should have been built for a wider audience in mind, and not just, fans of the release first time around. With that then, a shout out to the patrons of the channel who are just going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. If you do want to check that out for yourself, I have linked it in the video description down below. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.